locations on the earth where the hair on the back of your neck stands on end. History permeates the air. The story of Oswald, Atheling, king, saint, and dead by the age of 38, left such vapours. His story inspired Tolkien to base the character of Aragorn in Lord of the Rings on his life. Most of what we know about Oswald's life has come down to us via the writings of Nennius, a Welsh monk, Gildas, a British monk, and Bede. Bede is the best source. He lived and died at the monk Wearmouth Jarrow monastery. Looking out from his monastery, he would see British and Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, variously Christian or heathen, often at war and occasionally in alliance. To the north of the Humber lay the kingdom of Deira. North of the Tees lay Bernicia, with a northern boundary on the Forth, sometimes united as the kingdom of Northumbria and sometimes separated. The system of royal succession was basically unstable at this time, with no automatic heir to any throne. All sons and brothers of a dead Anglo-Saxon king were eligible successors, and the new king was chosen by the warrior elite. All potential successors were described as athelings. The chosen atheling then found it expedient to kill as many of the non-successful athelings as he could lay his hands on. Oswald's father Ethelfrith, grandson of Ida and king of Bernicia, deposed Ella, king of Deira, thus combining the two kingdoms. To firmly cement this combination, he married Accha, Ella's daughter and in time Oswald's mother. Edwin, Accha's brother and atheling son of Ella, escaped Ethelfrith's inevitable homicidal intent by seeking sanctuary in the courts of other Anglo-Saxon kings. About 13 years later, in the fields near the village of Eton, not far from Doncaster, Edwin, allied to Radwald, king of East Anglia, ambushed and killed Ethelfrith. Oswald, then aged 12, and his brothers immediately became athelings to the combined throne, and their mother, although being Edwin's sister, decided to flee with her brood from the expected cull. The Scots of Dalriata had owed tribute to the Northumbrian kingdom, but perhaps saw a route to national salvation through the support of this bevy of Bernician royal refugees. The athelings of Ethelfrith therefore found a safe haven in the house of King Ochaid in his fortress stronghold of Dunad in modern-day Argyll. The spiritual centre of this Christian community was on Iona, an island with a thriving monastery, founded by an Irish Rigdomna, the Irish version of an atheling, called Columkill, known later as St. Columba. Segena was the third abbot after Columkill, and he was entrusted with the education of Oswald and his brothers. Oswald's Christianity was therefore firmly established in the Irish tradition, and he formed a lasting friendship with Segena. Besides Oswald's religious education, from the age of 16 he fought with growing distinction in the warbands of his host. At the cataclysmic Battle of Hatfield Chase, this land experienced massive slaughter. Edwin had been very active expanding his dominion, but had at last met his Waterloo. He was killed here, near Mar, along with his son Osfrith and most of the Northumbrian warrior class. He was defeated by the combined forces of the Christian British King Cadwallon of Gwynedd and the heathen King Penda of Mercia. Penda returned home with his booty, but Cadwallon remained, and, in the words of Bede, spent the next year ravaging the unprotected lands of Bernicia and Deira. Oswald was now the principal atheling of both Deira through his mother Acha and Bernicia through his father Ethelfrith. Cadwallon and his army had spent the previous 400 days plundering and ravaging the north. They confidently relaxed, probably within the remains of the Roman town of Corbridge. Oswald approached quickly along Staingate, close to Hadrian's Wall. His own followers were bolstered by warrior monks from Iona and recruits from a friendly reged. He camped at Heavenfield, only an hour's march from the unsuspecting Cadwallon at Corbridge. Bede tells us that Columba visited Oswald in a dream in the night before the battle, and describes the victory to this intervention, but Oswald's battle experience probably had more to do with it. Gathering his small army together in the early dawn, Oswald marched on Corbridge. Oswald's surprise dawn attack routed the unprepared army of Cadwallon, and they fled across the Tyne, laden with booty and in disorder, and struck out to the southwest. A fatal mistake. The land here funnels between the high ground to the left and the converging Rowley Burn to the right, eventually becoming a virtual bog. The entire army of Gwynedd was overtaken and destroyed, and Cadwallon was killed. Oswald was now the undisputed king of Bernicia and Deira. He was also, through his Ionian Irish upbringing, a devout Christian, and quickly sought the secondment from Iona of an Irish bishop to his new kingdom. Aidan was the man chosen for the job, and with Oswald's enthusiastic support spread the Christian faith throughout the kingdom. Perhaps Bede leaves Oswald's best epitaph, writing 90 years after Oswald's death. He records that Oswald was martial to his enemies, generous to his warriors and the church, humble in the company of God's appointed priests, and munificent with his people. Oswald retained Bamborough as his home and castle, and Yevering, 20 miles to the west, as his tribal holy mountain and tax-gathering centre. I suppose we can sum him up as a brilliant and highly successful Christian warrior king. In his time he was overlord of most of present-day England and Wales, plus the Irish, Scots and Picts of the far north. He ruled for 8 years, but died at the hands of King Penda of Mercia, who, it is said, had his head nailed to a tree. Declared a saint from shortly after his death, his body parts were keenly sought as holy relics by the Christian communities of the day. However, we finished up with the most important bit, and his head rests, along with the body of St. Cuthbert, in the feretory of Durham Cathedral.